Hello, friends, neighbors. John, your neighbor here. Welcome down the Nook. And it will be Saturday when this comes out. In truth, it's Friday, but I hope to be at Elk Island Park enjoying a really nice, relaxing day. So I thought I'd shoot this today. It's some Canadian whiskeys, and I am yet to shoot my best 5 whiskeys for summer. But I will say in summer, I tend to drink a little bit more Canadian whiskey. And what I have for me today are two bottles. They're samples that came from Paul. They're out of Wildlife Distillery from Canmroe. So we're going to start off with a wheat whiskey, and then we're going to run over to a rye whiskey. So these are both Canadian whiskeys, both local. So if you've got any Canadian, wheat or rye, why don't you pour a dram? Come on back. 3, 4. Thanks for coming back. As I said, we're going to shoot a couple of Canadian whiskeys here. I've got these bottles from Paul. Thanks, Paul. It's great that you share your whiskey with me. These are from Wildlife Distillery in Canmroe. I haven't met, I believe, Matt and Keith, but these are their first releases. So this is a wheat whiskey. It's 53.5%. Actually, I got to check this. No, not 53.5. Sorry. 45.3%. That's a very different percent. And it is classified as a wheat whiskey. I think it's 61% wheat, 26 barley, and 13% rye. I love these bottles. I actually really like the labeling. Kind of reminds me a bit of Grainhenge, actually. I've got a bottle up there. But I think it looks good, nice presentation. So we've got a mash bill that's pretty high in wheat, 61% wheat. But then, barley 26 and then lots of rye. So we'll see what this is like, nose and taste. Oh, and it says on the label it's 3.5 years old, aged in new oak. That is a spicy, almost pine wood type note going in. Yeah, I'd be puzzled by this. Wheat whiskey. I know we're getting into rye, and I know I haven't switched the glasses around, but this is nosing quite herbaceous, like a rye. It's spicy. It's got some of that, like I said, pine wood. It's got a little bit of that greenness to it. There's some nice sweetness in there, some sugars. Not a lot of fruits on the nose, mostly grain and sweet and sugar. And then, as I said, a little bit of that kind of green pine note going on. Let's give it a try on the palate. Cheers. That's nice. I'm glad it's at a higher ABV. It's hot. It's young, but it's spicy. It's definitely distillate forward. I would say it's got some decent tannin or oak. It's got a bit of spice. I'm gonna come back to that rye spice. This is drinking like a Canadian rye. Like it's sweet, but spicy and quite still herbaceous for me. This is really drinking like a rye. In fact, I'm really puzzled because as a wheat whiskey, there is a sweetness to it, but I usually think of wheaters as a little more mellow or rounder, softer, doughier, chewier, all those things that, like if you're thinking of white bread, that's kind of the association. And there's a sweetness and a sugary note to that I could say, yeah, that's got some wheat in it. And there's a grain, but the flavors right now are a little bit more about whatever that new oak. It's quite fresh oak and the rye. It's really speaking a lot that way. I think I might have a wheat around here I'll compare it to after I talk directly about the rye. But that's my first thoughts here. I think I had a really small sip of this earlier, but the sample bottle came pretty low, so I thought I may as well just open it up and enjoy it with you guys. So after having their wheat whiskey, this is their rye whiskey. Now this is again aged at 3.5 years. It's 88% rye and I think 12% barley. So now there's no wheat in here at all, and there's tons and tons of rye. 3.5 years, also 45.9. So just slightly higher proof. That's a very interesting 45.3, 45.9. Those are very specific granular ABVs. Very curious how they figured out exactly this was the right way to present it. But so this is obviously rye. This one really spoke a ton of rye to me. But let's see what the actual rye whiskey out of Canmroe is like. Oh, okay. Well, it may be that they're just very expressive with their rye. Because now, in comparison, this is rye. This is grass forward. This is alfalfa cut in the barn. Yeah, and I like it. I like this kind of like full floral grassy rye. But just to compare it to the wheat now I actually can get a little more cinnamon, a little more baking spices that I really wasn't getting at first. Yeah, so there's, in comparison, this can soften out a bit. And this right now, nose, just a full-on rye. Let's give it a go. Cheers. And in this palate, maybe because I'm expecting a rye, like I'm liking this maybe a little more. It's spicy, a little bit of anise or licorice, like slight licorice, like black ball candy. It's almost more coating. I just said that, and then I'm going to contrast that by saying, but drying on the finish. My palate's kind of drying up, and the mouth is clean, which is always to me a really unique way. When my palate dries up and I've got more whiskey in the glass, it seems to be saying, you better try another sip. So let's go for it. I haven't had enough of these by any means to give them a rating. They are still a little bit young. And when I say young here, they feel distillate forward. They feel hotter than the 45%. Both of them are spicy, and both of them are a little bit piney, which I'm okay with, but I think might be a struggle for some. They're not as well-rounded. The wheat I expected to be softer, more well-rounded, and it did, in comparison, get that. But I thought this might be their more approachable, and it is, but I think many people going at it as a rye, a wheat, might think it should be softer yet. And this rye, I think you know what you're going in for. We're going in for spice. We're going in for that grass forward rye note. And it delivers that. So when I'm looking for that, I think I'd probably prefer their rye. It's always tough for me to recommend to others. It is still a little hotter and a little spicier and probably more controversial in a way than their wheat, but their wheat's by no means a softer. Anyways, this is fun. Thanks, Paul, for sharing with me, and I hope Canmroe's not that far away. I hope to drop in one day and check out the distillery. So, I was going to quickly do another wheat. Yeah, okay. So that's up here. If you stick around, I'll do another quick wheat. Okay, I found another wheat whiskey that I have. This is Wheatfield Gold. It's Wiser's, and it was released for, I think, the 150th celebration of Manitoba. So it's probably tough to find, but I think it's pretty close in percent, somewhere around 46, I think. And it is also wheat and rye, but I thought it was maybe in corn. And I think that what might be missing when I'm thinking of the wheat there, I was thinking, instead of the rye, what if it was wheat and corn and barley instead? And that maybe it's the rye that's sending me. But I do know that this wheat field has rye in it. It's mostly wheat, and then I know there's a rye in here as flavor. 46.1%. So let's see just how that compares, just as another Canadian whiskey wheat. Oh, it's so different than this. Now this will have some older liquid. They're a bigger house. This has some gingerbread, some ginger snap cookies. I don't know why ginger's coming out, but a little orange rind, a little ginger. Let's try this one on the palate. Cheers.